Me and Sandra were having conversations the other day, and we were talking, you know, going to heaven and this conundrum of the afterlife. And I was thinking,
this is going to be
I think my place in heaven is going to be all right, to be honest. Nah, it's just a quick one. I'll leave it glazed over. If people want us to go into more depth, they can comment below. So drop us a comment and we can maybe cover it in like a longer segment in a future episode if you want us to.
Give me
However,
the
staying on
context.
topic.
How did you get to
Let me introduce. I'm still introducing.
Okay, go.
Okay, so me and Sandra were just talking and we were discussing... What were we discussing? We were discussing gateways into heaven. So, gateways into heaven. You need to know someone who is religious enough to secure you a spot in heaven. Now, I thought in my head, I'm secure right now.
Okay.
I've got my nanny up there. I got my mum doing bath every day for me. But I'm like, but if mum's not here one day, what do I do, innit? So my humble benti to you, Karen, is will you do bath for me and save me a spot up there? Thank you.
There is so much to unpack here. Oh my God. I don't know where to start. Okay. So why are you of the perception or understanding or presumption that you get some sort of fast track pass like a thought park? Where is this? Where have you got the gyan or knowledge from?
Fast track in the rides, bro.
Yeah. Remedy kidnap, isn't it, bro? So tell me that first. We got to start there first. Like, who's told you that?
No one, man. It was just
you're just thinking
it, like, genuinely.
Yeah, ਏਦਾਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਏਦਾਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. Okay, that's the first thing.
We were just playing around thinking like, yo, do I know enough people that can you know vouch for me,
me a spot
up there? Like, you know, I got to consider these things.
Cool. That's the first thing. Second thing is, depending on how much you've read in things, heaven, or in Punjabi, swarg, for a Sikh is not the highest point. So that's still a temporary thing.
What's the highest point?
So the highest point is Sachkhand. So Sachkhand is the Lord, is the home of Vaheguru. So that's beyond heaven. So heaven, if you read from a Sikhi perspective, is a temporary place. It's full of what we call just jismani sukh, which is worldly sukh, happiness, worldly pleasures, right? And so when you go there, if you're afforded a place there, as opposed to narak, which is hell, then you are given sort of like a garland of sorts, kind of like what you use in the milni. You know the milni? Yeah. And what happens is, so there's a unit of time there, which is not like the unit of time we have here on Earth, like a year. Like, so you have, but let's call it a year, but it's not like our year. After a certain specified amount of time, which represents, let's say, a year or their version of a year, then one of those garlands will fall off. Okay, so your time in heaven or swarg is limited. And after that expires, you will then come back into whatever Dharamraj. So Dharamraj is kind of like the person who's been given the job by God to decide, kind of like what other faiths believe in terms of Judgment Day. You're kind of the person or the entity that does judgment. He will then decide whether you need to go back into Chirasi Lakh, so in the 8.4 million life forms, so into an animal, Juni. Juni means life form, or do you come straight back as a human? So heaven isn't the highest point. There's a point higher than that. That's number one. Number two, fast track. So now I was messing with you, but actually there are references in Bani that if you have people who are spiritual in your family and they have a lot of what we call kamai. So kamai means, how do you translate the word kamai? Like they've earned a lot of good karams. They've done so much seva, let's say, or so much simran, or the combination of both, that they've had so much kamai that yes, by their kamai, other people in your family can benefit from that. So that is a thing. Is a thing, but it's not something that people should be reliant on, thinking that they're going to get, fast track passes. So I'm going to spend my whole life just being on a podcast, chatting absolute shit, and then when the time comes,
I am wholly reliant on you. You thought this podcast was me trying to monetize this? No. I'm trying to get that sweet spot up there, next to you and Shindy. I'm like, take me with you and save me that spot. All right, that way I don't have to do anything, overly righteous. The other reason I had this conversation is because she's not massively religious, right? And to the point where when she told her dad about me and he was due to come over, he
when
came
she
back
told
and
her
he said
dad
to her,
about you. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and he came to the house to see me, and they do the whole like, you know, giving Biard and stuff and saying, yeah, we agree. He went home and he said to Sanj, he said, they're really religious. And Sanj said, why'd you say that? He said, because they keep their hair, right? That's the perception that they have. That's how unreligious they are. Yeah, that's it. If I keep my hair, bam, I'm full Sikhi. Okay.
I thought you were gonna say they saw your dad's swords and were like, "Yo, man means business, innit? 3 pens, 2 slides,
yeah,
2 swords. That's it, man. You're ready for business."
And I'm thinking in my head, but him and dad shared a drink, so clearly we're not that religious. But okay, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
But see, this is a
that's
really,
how
like,
that's how it is.
It's a really sticky thing. Yeah,
that's the
like
perception that was true.
Image is one thing, and you know, there's no kind of, well, I do this, but I don't do this, or I do everything, I don't do anything. Like, it's the simplest answer I have for when we have discussions like this is, listen, your equation. If you start with the presumption that you believe in God. If you believe in God, then your equation with that Almighty is between you and Him. That's it. So people who walk around saying this is how you should practice your Sikhi and this is the right way to practice Sikhi, da 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 da, incorrect. Okay, 1,000 million, 100 billion different ways to get to God. Okay, the brilliance. Now it's actually quite interesting to talk about this because tomorrow is actually Gurpur. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpur is tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
But obviously, this is released next week. But anyway, the genius, and I talk about this often when I'm teaching kids, the genius of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was simply this. He came on this earth about more than 500 years ago, and basically said, look, there are many ways to get to God, okay? But the age we live in now, your lifespan is a lot shorter than people used to live. So historically, people would live for 100,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000 years, and for our age, this period of time now, it's been set for about 100. Now, most people don't make it to 100, but that's kind of like the limit. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji basically said, well, you therefore need an accelerated way to get to God, okay? And I will show you that way by being the example. You do not have to follow me, but I'm showing you it's a proven and tested methodology. I'm never going to tell you have to do it. There's no rules, okay?
Yeah.
That is the genius of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Then he went on and basically said this. And this is, actually somebody asked me in Greece when I was there recently, there was a tour guide who was like, oh, you guys are Sikhs? And we're like, yeah. And she was like, so what do you believe? And I said to her, look, Sikhi believes in there is one God, whatever you want to call him, okay? And the people ask me, well, how do you love God? Well, the way to love God that has been taught to us by Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
Stop tapping table.
Yeah, I moved my hand away. I just realized. I consciously realized for the first time. It's because I'm doing this. I'm getting really animated with my hands. You know, in Medex, I have to move my hands. So I'm going to have my hands here.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
The genius of Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, if somebody asks, how do you love God? Love his people. That is the answer. Okay, so the reason why seva, selfless service, is so deeply ingrained in Sikhi is because we have been given this responsibility to help the world. So if you want to love that God, love his people. Love his people, help his people. Okay, one thing. Second thing is remember the Almighty. And that's it. That is the genius of Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
So my rebuttal is, if I am not overly spiritual in this way, but I'm still a good person, will I have my spot?
Don't know is the answer. When you get to Dharamraj, he will look at your good and your bad.
Interesting. I would think it would balance out, personally. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so because what you're saying there is, see, it depends on your definition of what is a good person. It depends on that. It's quite vague.
It does depend on that. Obviously, this is speculative, and then anyone can draw their boundary lines however they want. My version is, if I've done good things to people, that's just helping people, like selfless things. So I'll say like a little selfless thing I did today.
That's
right?
Yeah, go.
I'll tell you a little one, right?
Go.
So there was a package in our lobby at the flat downstairs, and it had been there since Saturday, and no one had taken it across. Basically, our flat names are very similar here, and the guy who dropped it off at Amazon dropped it off at the wrong address here, and no one had taken it across. So I went for a walk, I went to the gym, came back, and it was still there. So I thought, well, you know what, screw it, I'll go and drop it off. So I picked it up, took it out, dropped it off, came back, and then cool. I was like, cool, done. That's just a small little selfless thing I did that probably is going to help someone who's thinking they've lost their package or it's been nicked or whatever. And I'm like, well, actually, it's here. So There you go. But that's a little selfless thing that I'm like, well, that classifies really if you think about it.
Yeah. So then that is the definition of seva. The beauty of seva is it's not just something that you do in a gurdwara or a holy place. Do seva of the world, which is, one of the best definitions from Bruce Almighty, right? In Bruce Almighty, God, who's played by Morgan Freeman, is speaking to Jim Carrey in the film, and he says to him, he says, do you want to know what the definition of a miracle is? He goes, as God, he's saying, everybody asks me for miracles. He says a miracle is one random act of kindness a day. And that is probably the best definition that I openly and oftenly quote to people. So yes, man, keep doing your seva. That's it. Like I said to you, just the precursor to that is there are 100,000 different ways to get to that one God. But your equation was with him. Not for me to define it for you. It's only for you to define. That's it. Yeah.
But equally, you can meet people who are doing the most seva and whatnot, but they're some of the evilest people you'll ever meet on this earth. So it's like,
no, but we can say that.
Do that.
Yeah, but I don't know why people always go to that extreme. It's the same like, oh, you got the 5Ks, but you do bad things. It's like, okay, but then there are a lot of people who are the other way as well, who don't have anything and they're still doing bad things. So it is what it is, and that's why your equation is between you and him. It's not for. That's why it's not for anyone.
Very true.
There's a great quote I think in the Bible, which is actually, Kanye references in one of his songs as well about let him. It's something about casting a stone, basically. So there was a story where these people were going to kill this person by stoning him, and I think Jesus himself or one of the disciples basically said, "If you've not sinned, or if you have sinned, drop your stone," or something like that. He was not sinned, don't cast your stone, something like that. And everyone realized that actually, who are we to judge this person? So yeah, it's more complicated than that, than what we see. There is perception of what we have of people. So clearly, Sanjay's family thought you lot were really religious. That was brilliant.
There you go.
So it's just perception, isn't it? It's just, yeah.
It is. If people want us to cover that more in depth, drop us a comment and we will happily do so.